San Francisco just made multiple roster moves, and on the surface they might not feel massive. But if you really look at what's happening here, you can see the direction this front office is quietly taking. And I want to walk you through it, like we're just sitting there breaking it down together. First, let's talk about Kalia Davis. The 49ers officially decided not to tender him, which means he now becomes an unrestricted free agent. He can sign anywhere. He can test the market. And yes, technically he could still come back to San Francisco, but now it would have to be at a number that makes sense for both sides. Here's the key part a lot of people miss. This wasn't about whether Davis has talent. We've seen flashes. We've seen the splash plays. We've seen that size and burst from the interior. But the issue has always been consistency and availability. Injuries have followed him from college into the league, and when you're trying to manage every dollar against the cap, you can't justify giving a right of first refusal tender worth over $3.5 million to a player who hasn't proven he can stay on the field long term. Last season his cap hit was just over $1 million. Jumping that number that high simply didn't make financial sense. And to me, this move tells us something bigger. The 49ers are resetting the defensive tackle room. They're letting veterans walk. They're not overpaying rotational pieces. And instead, they're signaling that they want to build around younger, developing players who can grow into bigger roles. That tells me they're confident in the direction they're heading internally. But it also tells me they know the pass rush wasn't good enough. Let me ask you this directly. Are you okay with letting Kalia Davis walk? Type yes or no in the comments. I want to see where you stand on this one. Now, the other move might sound small, but I promise you it's not. John Weeks is back. And I know, long snapper doesn't exactly move the needle in headlines. But if you watched last season closely, you understand why this matters. Special teams improved. The field goal operation stabilized. And that battery between the snapper, holder, and kicker, that chemistry matters more than people realize. If the 49ers are trying to keep that unit intact, especially after the roller coaster at kicker, bringing Weeks back gives you continuity. And when you're trying to win tight games, especially in January, you cannot afford special teams breakdowns. This front office clearly values stability in areas that don't always get attention, and that's a championship mindset. Quick pause. If you appreciate breakdowns like this, and you want daily 49ers coverage without missing a beat, make sure you hit subscribe right now. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers on this channel, and every single one of you helps build this community. If you're part of the faithful, this is your home. Now here's where it gets interesting. These roster tweaks aren't isolated moves. They connect to something bigger. Because if you're freeing up flexibility on the defensive line, if you're letting rotational pieces walk, if you're protecting cap space, it usually means you're preparing to make something happen. And that brings us to a trade rumor that could completely change the identity of this defense. I'll break that down next. Now let's talk about the move that could actually reshape this defense in a serious way. The Minnesota Vikings are reportedly open to trading Jonathan Greenard. And the second I saw that, I immediately thought about San Francisco. You don't finish dead last in sacks and just shrug your shoulders. You don't watch quarterbacks sit comfortably in the pocket all season and say, "We'll be fine." John Lynch already admitted they have to prioritize getting after the quarterback more consistently. And if you're serious about that, this is exactly the type of move you explore. Greenard is coming off back-to-back, double-digit sack seasons. 12.5 sacks one year, 12 the next. That's production, not projection, not upside. Production. And here's what makes it even more intriguing. His contract is extremely reasonable for that level of output. Around $19 million per year over the next 2 seasons. In today's edge rusher market, that's not outrageous. That's not Max Crosby money. That's not 2 first-round picks, plus a record-setting extension. That's a controllable prime-age pass rusher, who's still under 30 and fits your scheme. He's played in a 4-3. He's rushed in wide alignments. He's shown he can defend the run. That's important, because this coaching staff values edges who don't just fly upfield but can set the edge and hold their ground. That's non-negotiable in this defense. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Minnesota is reportedly looking for a day 2 pick. So we're talking second or third round territory. Let me ask you something straight up. Would you trade a second round pick for Jonathan Greenard? Type trade or pass in the comments. I really want to know how aggressive you're feeling this offseason, because this is the type of move that says, we know where we failed, and we're fixing it. The 49ers cannot go into another season hoping pressure magically improves. You can't ask the secondary to cover forever. You can't rely solely on blitz packages. You need someone who wins one-on-one consistently. Greenard has proven he can do that. And I also love this from a timeline standpoint. 2 years left on his deal. That gives you a real championship window without mortgaging your future long-term. It's aggressive, but calculated. Let me hit you with something important here, faithful. If you believe this team is one impact pass rusher away from elevating the defense back to elite status, then now is the time to show up for this community. We are pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and this channel grows because of you. If you want this coverage to get even better, if you want more breakdowns, more trade analysis, more draft scouting, use the Super Thanks or Hype feature right now. It's not a donation. It's you fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. It's helping upgrade production. It's helping this community grow. We're building something here together. The faithful runs this channel. Now back to football. Greenard isn't just about sacks. His pressure rate has been strong. His quarterback hits are there. Even in seasons where the sack total dips slightly, the disruption is consistent. And when you pair disruption with a defensive coordinator who understands how to manufacture matchups, you're talking about a potential game changer. Imagine a front where offenses can't just slide protection one direction. Imagine forcing quarterbacks into quicker decisions. That changes everything for your linebackers. It changes everything for your secondary. And speaking of the secondary, there's another name floating around that could shake up this defense in a completely different way. And it comes from a division rival. Let's talk about that next. Now let's shift to the secondary, because if you're serious about elevating this defense back to elite status, it can't just be about the pass rush. Coverage matters. Matchups matter. And there's a name being floated that would definitely get people talking. Riq Woolen. There's belief around the league that if he doesn't re-sign with Seattle, the 49ers could show interest. And I'm going to be honest with you, I like the idea. Yes, he's a Seahawk. Yes, that would make it even sweeter. But let's focus on the football side of this. Woolen is long, explosive, and built for today's NFL. He has legit speed. He has length that disrupts passing windows. And most importantly, he has ball production. You don't consistently rack up pass breakups and interceptions by accident. That's instincts and timing. Last season, he allowed just under a 57% completion rate. That's strong. Quarterbacks posted a rating under 80 when targeting him. That's strong. And he continues to show he can get his hands on the football year after year. Now think about the 49ers' defensive philosophy. They play a lot of zone. They want corners who can read the quarterback, close quickly, and use length to shrink throwing lanes. Woolen's frame and athletic profile fit that beautifully. You pair him opposite Diamador Lenoir, and suddenly you've got size and physicality on both sides. And I know some critics will say, well, he gets beat sometimes. So do the best corners in football. You're playing against elite wide receivers every week. What matters is how often you recover, and how often you flip the field with turnovers. Woolen has shown he can do that. Now here's the real question. Would you sign a former Seahawk if it meant upgrading this defense in a serious way? Be honest with me. Type yes or no in the comments. Rivalry emotions aside, are you making the football decision? Because if you add a corner like Woolen and potentially a pass rusher like Greenard, you're not just patching holes. You're actively attacking weaknesses. But let's not ignore the other glaring weakness that has haunted this team. The offensive line. You know it. I know it. We've all lived it. Watching pressure collapse pockets at the worst possible moments. Watching drives stall because protection couldn't hold up. And there's a veteran name floating around that could change that dynamic, at least in the short term. Let's talk about that and why this might be the most important move of all. Now we get to the part that might matter more than anything else we've talked about. The offensive line. Because you can upgrade the pass rush, you can add a corner, you can tweak the defensive tackle room. But if the protection isn't right, none of it reaches its full potential. There's a name being connected to San Francisco as a possible stopgap solution at left guard, Joel Bitonio, 7-time Pro Bowler, one of the most consistent guards of the last decade, still playing at a high level. The only question is whether he wants to continue playing at all. He's contemplating retirement, and that obviously changes everything. But strictly from a football standpoint, this makes sense. Bitonio ranked near the top of the league in pass block win rate, over 96%. That's elite. His run block numbers were above average. That's reliable. And if you plugged him next to Trent Williams, you're talking about a left side that instantly stabilizes your protection. Yes, both players are on the older side. Yes, this would be a short-term solution. But sometimes short-term solutions are exactly what contenders need. Let me ask you this. Do you trust this front office to finally prioritize the offensive line the way it needs to be prioritized? I want an honest answer in the comments. Because here's the reality. As long as this offensive line remains average to below average, this team will continue to fall just short. You cannot expect deep playoff runs while asking quarterbacks to survive constant interior pressure. You cannot keep saying, "We'll scheme around it." At some point, you invest. Bitonio would be an upgrade over what's currently there. He'd help take pressure off the center spot. He'd bring veteran leadership to a room that desperately needs steadiness. And if they don't go the veteran route, then they need to attack it in the draft or sign a younger free agent. But they cannot ignore it. This offseason is about choosing a direction. Are you going all in on maximizing the championship window? Or are you hoping internal growth covers weaknesses again? Because adding a pass rusher like Jonathan Greenard sends one message. Exploring a corner like Riq Woolen sends another. But fixing the offensive line? That's the clearest signal of all that you are serious about finishing the job. If you've been rocking with this breakdown, make sure you hit subscribe and help us push toward 2,000 subscribers. Every new member of the faithful strengthens this community. And if you want to directly fuel the growth of this channel and help us level up production as we chase that next Super Bowl trophy together, use the Super Thanks or Hype feature below. You're not donating. You're investing in better coverage for this fan base. Now I want to hear from you. What's the one move you think this team absolutely has to make? Trade for Greenard? Sign Woolen? Fix the offensive line at all costs? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it.